My name is Coretta Harwood. I am, I'm a funeral director. I'm an embalmer. And so the theme of today's talk is the greatness of community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. Me being at a funeral home daily, I get to see the best of people and I get to see the absolute worst of people. I get to see situations where it just melts your heart that people could come together and share resources, and share love, and give attention to each other. But also I see that other side, I'm like, well, how could someone be so heinous? How could someone be so mean and evil? But you know what, I have decided that being compassionate in a community requires a person to be a leader. We are all leaders. How many leaders do I have in this room? Okay, wait a minute. Y'all didn't hear the memo I said. We're all leaders. Then I said, how many leaders do we have in the room? Some of y'all got lost. Now, I'm going to say it again. I need some hands to go up. How many leaders do we have in this room? Yes, all right. So the thing is, to be a leader, it doesn't mean that you have to have a street named after you, or it doesn't mean that you're going to be a CEO. It doesn't mean you're going to be a president of a college. It means that in your own respective environment, you're going to lead out. You're going to be the person that sets the tone for what happens in your environment. One of the things that has happened since I've been home, I just came home and I started to see, well, what needs to be done? I'm one of those people, I always like to be busy. I don't know if I'm ADHD or what, or I eat too much sugar or drink too much caffeine, but I feel like it's a shame in the Northwest. There's so many opportunities for all of us that I'm just not gonna wake up, leave a carbon footprint, not get much done that day. Each day we need to figure out, how am I going to do something to motivate myself, to motivate somebody around me? Because you know what, it's so much easier to be happy, to share love, to share kindness, to share compassion, than it is to have a frown on your face. Now, with me saying that, I met a gentleman yesterday. I'm like, okay, he looks like he's been sucking on like sour lemons. I was like, okay, what can I do to show him a little bit of compassion? Maybe he's had a bad day. And you know what? No matter how sweet I was to him or whatever, he was gonna stay that way. And you know what? You be compassionate, you be kind, and you let people go their way. So at the end of their life, if they say nobody else was kind to me, maybe God will give them a flicker. It's like, one person was nice to you. So you're not gonna get everybody, but we have a mandate to take care of each other. So what I wanna do is, where do we start? How do we start by being a leader in the community? When I came home, I saw there was some things that needed to be addressed. At the funeral home, they have an office and they operate Evergreen Empowerment Group. Evergreen Empowerment Group is a group of people who have volunteered their time to help people get back on their feet, who have felony records and misdemeanors and things that would prohibit them from getting good paying jobs and things like that. And it's for free, mostly for free. It's been reduced. Stop it, I'm paying that bill. Hallelujah. Anyway, but we have a safe place for people to be able to come in and get help so they can get back on their feet. It's important to see what's around us. Who needs help? Who needs something? Your mandate might not be to the entire city. I'm good at going out, talking to people, rounding people up, finding out what's needed, doing coat drives, whatever. Maybe your mandate might just be checking in on the neighbor next door that lost their spouse, or helping somebody with their kids when their babysitter called out. We are a family. We live in this Pierce County together. We live in this Washington State together, and we have a responsibility to each other. If nothing else, the King family has taught us, it's about how to look after others. This woman was in a dry place. I couldn't even imagine that. I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine having 4 children and now I'm still trying to motivate a community. I'm still trying to press on and be encouraging. It's like, where does this energy come from? You have to dig for this energy. It has to be in you. When was the last time someone gave you a hug that it was genuine? Yesterday? We have to. Everybody's not going to want a hug. Everybody's not going to want somebody in their space. But most of the time, people are going to want a kind word. Or they're going to want a glance or a smile. Part of us being leaders in this community is finding out, okay, I'm getting up this morning. If you do like I do, okay, let me just start with my morning. Hopefully you don't laugh at me and think ill of me, but I'm gonna tell you about it anyway. The alarm goes off about 7:30 most mornings. I get out to bed about 8:15. I've been hitting the snooze button several times. I fall out to bed running. And then I have to get the baby ready, get her off to school. But what I have to do is I have to pull myself together. I have to have some quiet time, even if it's in the car, because I have to have time to make sure that I'm settled, that I'm centered. What's gonna happen with my day? And I usually do this in the morning. I stay up too late the night before, I work really late, and then I go to bed late, and then I oversleep, but I make a plan, I make a list of what I'm gonna do the next day. So it has been a little challenging running a funeral home and a catering business. Oh, and I have a little company too, but anyway, that's just something else I do when I decide I'm not gonna sleep that week. But I have to make a list. How am I gonna be intentional tomorrow? And when I have my list, I know how to go about it. So, I know everybody's still full on Subway. Somebody tell me, what is it around them that they need to see change in their environment? Somebody. You with the E. With the key bangs, yes, you. What do you think needs to change in this Tacoma area, even on these streets around us?
The way we respect each other, probably.
Very nice. Let's just touch on that for a minute. I'm not going to be political. That's my assistant over there. This is going to be the last time you're going to see her. She's not coming back. There's not a lot of kindness coming from our leaders. The politicians, they haven't spoken nicely to each other. And they haven't treated people very kindly. And I'm talking about them in their own environments. But it's filtered down to this level. And how people that were kind of closeted bullies, they feel like it's okay. So kindness is important. So thank you. Somebody else, ma'am, you right there, go out about it. What can we do? What do we need to see in this area? I'd say communication. Communication. Start with the red. What's good? What do you know about communication? Yes, you. What the heck? Come talk to me. Talk to me.
Being able to talk to each other, explain things,
yes,
instead of run away from them.
Yes. What causes us to run away from each other?
We're avoiding issues, conflict.
You know what? It's perception. It's easy for us to withhold our emotions and have certain perceptions. What I've come to discover is that, especially at a funeral home, it's like a life lesson daily. But what I've come to discover is that people are so much easier to access the emotion of anger than they would deal with grief. You know, anger is easy, it's clean, you know what to do with it, you know how to direct it, you can just send it anywhere. Grief is something you have to kind of process internally. But compassion, in order for us to be compassionate, we usually have to have an understanding of what the person's going through. When there's a natural disaster, you see people like giving to the Red Cross. Why? Because that could have been us. You know, there's a level of connectivity. So for us to show compassion to the man on the street corner, we start thinking like, you know what, they've been cutting hours back at my job. This could be me in a couple weeks. Here's $5. I connected with that person. I was able to communicate the language that we both understood because he's on the corner today. It could be me next week because the hours at work they got a little strange. In order for us to be able to be effective in our compassion, there does need to be a level of understanding for issues. So let me just read you something because I am the product of El Ray and Kitty Scott and I can talk and I just don't want to do that. So I was looking at, I was on vacation. I was just looking at things that was going on in this area and about how people became leaders and affected change in their own environment. So I'm going to read you something. It started from things that happened this past summer. The school that's pretty much across the street from where I live, this is someone else's story, it's not mine. They kept it locked up during the summer, so none of the kids in the community could play in the field. A gentleman in my neighborhood invited me to a Safe Streets meeting. He said that was the start. I went and heard the concerns of other people living in our community about not having a park or a field for our children that live in the area to play. So I took it upon myself to go to school and go to a board meeting I expressed my concerns about this issue and even explained how the community is willing to pitch in and do a monthly cleanup of the school field. To me, I saw this as a small project, but after talking to the guy in charge of the TACOMA school grounds, pretty much he said he was 100% on board with my vision. And once that happened, the program took off, and he has the support for his vision to become citywide. He said, between my 8 to 5 job, I've been on the phone with different people to get their support. Tomorrow is the first time for the community cleanup at the school. I have a city council member that's backing me on this, as well as a school principal and a few teachers from the school, plus people from the community. So, this man saw an empty school field just sitting during the summer, and then he would see the kids playing on the sidewalk or playing in the street. He decided to ask some questions. He took it upon himself to find out, okay, there's a problem, what can I do about it? He just asked some questions. Come to find out, other people were thinking the same thing, but they hadn't taken that leadership role. And as soon as he did, he found out how much support there was for it. So he went from just being a regular blue-collar guy that cut steel in Kent to now he's meeting with the Pierce County council members to find out how he can make this vision grow. That seems simple, right? I mean, he asked a question, he ended up in a meeting, and now it's going to affect the entire county because one person had a question. To enact change, it means that you might have to ask a question. You might not be comfortable with people. For him, it was like, what bothered him to action? He wanted to know, what can I do differently? I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't know what to do. He didn't have the education. He didn't feel like he was articulate enough to be going before all of these people. But he started with a question. And then he found that he had a ton of support. So, how can I help? Each of us have different demands in our lives. If it's feeding grandma's cat, going to help her, that's being a community partner. That's showing compassion. That's showing growth and building. If, I don't know, someone needs their dog walked, if you need to help a neighbor that broke his foot, check their mail. We all are better when we help each other out. With me saying that, there are barriers. And usually our barriers are, sometimes we get scared and we get nervous of people. Sometimes people are intimidating. Sometimes you don't want to, well, what if they say no? Well, what if they say yes? What if you could be the person that saves somebody's day? This is a little side note. I got a phone call and someone told me thank you. I got a call about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I saw who was calling me. I'm like, I'm not in the mood for this. But I answered the phone anyway. And I talked to this person and they kept me on the phone for about 20 minutes and we said goodbye. I turned over and went back to sleep. 3 years later, this is just recently, they told me I was on the bridge in Seattle and I was gonna kill myself. I'm like, really? It's like, but you took the time to talk to me. I didn't know what was wrong. I just felt. I led by my spirit and I felt that I needed to talk to this person on the phone. I just need to chat with them. Even though I was half asleep and drooling on my pillow and I wanted to go back to sleep. You never know how much of an impact you can make on a person just taking a little time. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a car. You don't have to have a lot of money. You have to have a willing spirit and a smile. Any willing spirits in here? I don't know. You guys that was a little flaky. Any willing spirits in here? Okay, very good. I see your hand. You okay? In the blue shirt, you good? Did you have a question? Hey, all right, I like that. I said all these things to say this, and I hope I'm not rambling, is that we all can make a difference. We all can be agents of change. And as you take a step out on faith and be willing to say yes, that okay, I'll be part of this initiative. There was an initiative about taxing groceries. There was people saying no because they identified groups of people that were going to be impacted by it. That might not be your thing, going out having people sign petitions. But maybe it's your thing to go out and make sure that your neighborhood is cleaned up. Maybe it would be your thing to check in with the fire department to see what they need. And And as we do these things, we get from behind the telephone. I'm one of those, I stay on my phone a lot, but we disconnect from our electronics and we connect to each other. And there's benefits in that. How many people in here are students? Okay, well, let me tell you one of the benefits of that. As you're going out, as you're learning how to engage in your community, you meet people of influence, you meet people of resources, and so you never know where your next position might come from, or who could write you a letter of recommendation to get you to where you need to go, because you were volunteering somewhere, or because you decided to give a lending hand on a particular day. The last thing I want to say, in looking at our environment, and looking at this Northwest that we live in, this is an amazing landscape. There are so many opportunities here. So this is, I don't know, I've moved away and come back several times. So the last time I moved away, I was gone about 10 years. But I was in Houston, and I couldn't believe all of the opportunities down there, right? And there were all these things set up, and it was outstanding. And then I came home, I was like, oh, well, we don't have this, we don't have that. But you know what I realized? No, we don't have it. I can start it. You know? If you don't see something, especially coming from bigger cities, or you see things like on social media, you can start it. I wasn't dormant before I lived here. I did things in my environment when I lived in Oregon, when I lived down in Texas, when I ran away to Hawaii that time. Didn't tell my mom I had moved away, but I've always done things in my environment. But what I found out is it's been easier to do things here at home because there's a greater level of connectivity. So it's easier for me to see the need. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, didn't that street used to be really pretty with flowers? Well, there's no flowers anymore. Where'd the flowers go? Well, that stopped years ago. People stopped planting them there. Well, that's something that I can do because I have a remembrance. I'm connected to that landscape. So what I want you to know is anything you don't see in Tacoma, maybe you see it in Seattle, bring it here. We need your energy. All these young people with good knees and good ankles and your back's not hurting, we need you. I'll be 41 next week. I said, Lord, I got to do better. I said, I can't be waking up in the morning taking ibuprofen. Stuff's just starting to hurt and ache, and I guess life has changed. I guess it's changed. But you young people that are full of energy. When I say young people, if you're under 50, you're young. Okay, don't get squirrely. If you're under 50, you're young. If you've got your health and you're over 50, you're still young. This is a day, if you take nothing else away, just know this. Anything you want to see change, anything that you want to see happen around you, you can do it. Sometimes it's a matter of asking some questions, going to the library, doing some internet research, but there's people that are willing to even help with funding, that are willing to help volunteer. All we need is a little bit of momentum. Coretta Scott King worked tirelessly for years to get the King Center developed. Raising 4 children, trying to make sure that she has income coming in the house, still fighting for social justice issues, and then trying to build a legacy for her husband. That woman had some energy, but she had a vision, and she pulled other people in their vision. You don't have to be a one-man show. In fact, it's not good to be a one-man show. But as long as you can get a vision, write it out, it doesn't have to be perfect, and you get some people behind you, you can do anything. That's the only reason I'm able to run a funeral home, a catering business, flowers, I write. That's how I'm able to do anything. I find people who are willing to connect with the vision that I have. I pull them on board with me, and then all of a sudden the train has momentum. Sometimes people are your catalyst. They're the gasoline to help you get to the next stage. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, who has a question for me? I'm scared. Ma'am, you, with the Starbucks. I'm gonna get a sip in a minute. Yeah. Tell me this. What do you think in 2019 could make our city better?
You know, I constantly, I deal with homeless people that come to the door. And I think what would make it better, one, to have more mental health facilities, doctors help with the homelessness that is out there. Training those young people who need, maybe not so much as what dates have something to basically strive from. So, yeah, to help with the situation that's around here. We have money that's out there. So to be able to tap into money that's there, and even with the college itself, you know, to be able to tap into some of the money that is going into research. The research is here. The research is right around the Pierce County area. You go out and talk to the people, you'll know what you need.
That's very good. Thank you. Yes.
I was just gonna say, you just reminded me that, there's an open house, I believe it's this weekend for the new facility, the mental health facility at Allenmore. So, yeah, look for that, that's awesome, thank you.
There was a time in this country where people just took care of each other more. The nuclear family was just my husband, my baby, my kids, and us. There used to be a time when grandma was in the back room, uncle that he can't get along with nobody else, he's in the other room across the hall, and we lived as a family and we took care of each other. One of the things I came back to the funeral home a few years ago, I'm like, what do you mean they need caterers at a funeral? I'm like, what happened to all the big mamas at the church that would cook a pot of macaroni and cheese and roasted chicken? I'm like, what happened? There's been a degrading of the community. There's been a lack of compassion in the community and a lack of connectivity. When we are connected, we all have what we need because we are able to talk to each other. You're not somewhere in cyberland where I have to try to send you a message or hit you up on Twitter. No, I can pick up the phone and call you. I think part of the mental health crisis that we have right now is outlandish. We have to support each other. We have to, first off, see people that are in their beginning stages and identify it, and mental health assistance is getting treatment. You have to take it at different approaches for different cultures because not all cultures are very accepting of health treatments. People will take medication for diabetes, but they won't take medication for schizophrenia. So there's a lot of education that has to take place around that. But again, it's about, okay, in my family, do I see somebody that's on the edge? If you see somebody that's on the edge in your own family, somebody that you know is like, okay, we don't know what this person's gonna do this week, or we don't know how stable she is, or if she's trying to commit or complete suicide, or however, intervene. And a lot of times people will just wander off and they'll end up on the streets. No, we owe each other more than that. If I was in an emotional crisis, I would hope my family would see, okay, Coretta's not right, she's been drinking too much cocoa or something, something's off, and wrap their arms around me. But sometimes people don't have that. But if you're the neighbor and you see that, okay, there's something taking place and it's wrong, check on each other. Check on each other. If someone tells you, no, I'm fine, I'm good, but the person that you ask and they say, I'm about to collapse, I'm about to implode, help them. The stories, oh my goodness, the stories I hear, and I'm wrapping up, at the funeral home, where people tell me, well, I thought to call them, but I just didn't, I was too busy. I live my life in a certain way because I've seen other people's mistakes, and then I take those mistakes and I put them in a reservoir of things that I don't want to do. So it requires a lot of energy for me to make sure I'm always being proactive about what's happening around me. That there was someone that just passed away, And I kept feeling like, okay, send them flowers, send them flowers, send them flowers. I asked my mother, Miss Kitty, I'm like, Mom, we need to send her flowers, send her flowers, send her flowers, send her flowers. She passed, and I didn't get a chance to give her her flowers. You lead with your spirit. If you feel like someone is in crisis, if you don't know what to do, you pick up the phone. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
About generations to come, you know, like from Martin Luther King's past, you know, all the way to today, you know. Everything that we do today is gonna show on to the next generation, you know, our son, our daughter, you know. Either way, you know, I think the best thing we can show is, you know, the right way, the good things we've learned, the good things we've done, pass on to the next generation. I mean, maybe just a little bit more about that too, because there's been a lot of change from back then to now, and you know, some good, some bad, but you know, maybe more of the good things.
Our own homes is where we start. Our own homes. And I look at my 6-year-old, I'm like, okay, am I doing enough? Am I kind enough to her? Does she feel like she's loved enough? And then I'll see her with other little kids. And she's like, oh, you the precious, oh, you the blessed. And she's rubbing them and she's kissing them and she's rubbing their feet. And she mimics the stuff that I do. I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right, you know? But at home, don't just take this act of love and ministry of love and give it to people on the streets. At home first. And before you can give it out to the people in the house, look in the mirror and be gentle with yourself. Okay, well, I feel like I'm gonna go down this pathway really quickly. Be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, and forgive yourself. Yesterday is yesterday, we're dealing with today. Let's get ready for tomorrow. So we are looking forward to the future. But our change, it starts in the home. But it can't start in the home if we're all messed up. So, kind to ourselves, forgive ourselves, and look forward to the future. Last question. Did you get it all covered? Okay. Well, thank you again for allowing me to come up here and chat your ear off for just a little bit. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep, but just want you to hear my heart when I say that there is work to be done. And you have the capacity right now with whatever you have in your hands to make it happen. That you are an agent of change. You are a vessel of compassion and love. And I look forward to seeing some of you world changers, especially you students. I'm looking at you. Get ready. Get ready for the best. It doesn't matter about what has happened yesterday. Today is a new day. You started fresh, you got your community support behind you, and let's be better together. I'm Coretta, thank you.